I never thought my high school would become the place of my worst nightmares. I've always hated school, but this was different. It all started when we moved to a new building, an old, abandoned school that had been closed for years. They said it was cheaper than repairing our old one, but something felt off the moment we stepped inside. The school was old, the kind of old where the walls seemed to sigh under the weight of years. The floorboards creaked with every step, and the air always felt colder than it should have been, even in the middle of summer. There were stories, of course. The seniors whispered about a girl who had died here when it was still a functioning school. Some said she fell down the stairs, others said she was pushed. But those were just stories. At least that's what I thought. It all began on a Wednesday. I remember because it was the middle of the week and I had my least favorite subject, history. The teacher droned on about some ancient war, but I wasn't paying attention. My mind kept wandering, drawn to the strange feeling in the room. It was as if someone was watching me, but every time I looked around, everyone was focused on their notes. Then, I heard it. At first, I thought it was my imagination. A soft whisper, barely audible. I turned to the girl next to me, Emily, but she was busy scribbling in her notebook. The whispering continued, growing louder. It was coming from behind me. "Who's there?" I whispered under my breath, not wanting to disturb the class. No one answered. I turned around slowly, expecting to see one of my classmates playing a prank, but the desk behind me was empty. A shiver ran down my spine. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the whisper again, like someone standing right next to me, murmuring in my ear. The words were unclear, but the tone was desperate, as if trying to tell me something important. The next day at school, I tried to brush it off as just my imagination. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe it was the stress of the upcoming exams. But when I walked into history class, the whispering returned. This time, it was louder, more insistent. I couldn't ignore it anymore. After class, I stayed behind, determined to figure out what was happening. The room was empty, but the whispers remained, filling the silence with their eerie hum. I walked up to the back of the classroom, where the sound seemed the strongest. That's when I saw it. There, carved into the old wooden desk, was a name, Lily. The name sent a jolt through me. It was the name of the girl from the stories, the one who had died in the old school. My heart pounded in my chest as the whispers grew louder, surrounding me. "Lily," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Is that you?" For a moment everything went silent. Then, the whispers returned. This time they were clear. "Help me." The voice was soft, pleading. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I ran out of the classroom, my heart racing. I didn't stop until I reached the school library, where I found Emily. She looked at me, concerned. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she joked, but when she saw my face, her smile faded. "What happened?" I told her everything, about the whispers, the name carved into the desk, and the voice asking for help. To my surprise, she didn't laugh or call me crazy. Instead, she looked serious. "I've heard the whispers too," she admitted. "I thought I was just imagining things, but now, maybe it's real. Maybe Lily's spirit is trapped here." We spent the rest of the day researching. The school records didn't have much, but we found an old newspaper article about a girl named Lily who had died in the school. The details were vague, but it mentioned that her death was ruled an accident, even though some students at the time believed she had been pushed. That night, Emily and I snuck back into the school. We had to know the truth. Armed with flashlights, we made our way to the classroom where I had first heard the whispers. The school was eerie at night, the silence thick and oppressive. When we reached the classroom, the air felt different, heavier. The whispers started again, but this time they were louder, clearer. "Help me, find the truth." "We're here to help you, Lily," Emily said softly. "What happened to you?" Suddenly, the temperature dropped and the door slammed shut behind us. Our flashlights flickered, and for a moment, I thought they would go out completely. Then we heard it. A loud thud, like something heavy falling. We followed the sound to the back of the room, where the floorboards were old and worn. There was a loose one, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. With trembling hands, I pried it up, revealing a small hidden compartment. Inside was an old dusty journal. It belonged to Lily. We sat there, reading the journal in the dim light. It told the story of her final days, how she had been bullied by a group of older students. They had cornered her on the staircase, and in the struggle, she had fallen. But it wasn't an accident. They had pushed her. Lily's voice filled the room again, but this time it wasn't a whisper. It was clear, strong. "Thank you." The air felt lighter, and the whispers stopped. We knew what we had to do. The next day, we took the journal to the principal. It wasn't much, but it was enough to reopen the investigation into Lily's death. The truth was finally out. The whispers never returned after that. The classroom felt normal again, just another old room in an old school. But I'll never forget the sound of Lily's voice, or the way she had reached out for help, even after all those years. Some people say schools are just buildings, but I know better now. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it whispers in the dark, waiting for someone to listen. My school was built over 70 years ago. The old red brick building creaked and groaned like an ancient beast, but it was home to us all. The students joked about how the place felt haunted, but no one really believed it, at least, not until what happened last year. It started with the rumors. Whispers spread like wildfire, and soon everyone was talking about the silent hallway. I had never paid much attention to gossip, but even I couldn't ignore it when the stories kept popping up. Supposedly, if you walked down that hallway alone after dark, you would hear footsteps behind you, but when you turned around, no one would be there. The whispers would follow you, closer and closer, until you finally ran for your life. I didn't believe it at first. Why would I? It sounded like just another urban legend to scare freshmen. But then my friend Mark disappeared. Mark was one of those guys who liked to prove he wasn't afraid of anything. He had heard the stories about the silent hallway and decided to check it out for himself. One night, he stayed after school to finish up some work and decided to take a walk down that hallway, alone. He never came home. His parents were frantic. The police searched the school from top to bottom but found no trace of him. It was like he had just vanished. The only clue was his backpack, left in the middle of the silent hallway. The school tried to keep things quiet, but the rumors spread even faster. Some said that Mark had been taken by whatever haunted that hallway. Others said he had just run away, but I knew Mark. He wouldn't just leave like that. I couldn't let it go. I needed answers. So, one evening, a week after Mark disappeared, I decided to go back to the school. I had to know what happened to him. The sun was setting as I slipped through the back entrance, my heart pounding in my chest. The school felt different at night, empty, eerie, as if the walls themselves were watching me. I made my way to the silent hallway, every step echoing loudly in the deserted building. When I reached the hallway, I stopped. It looked just like any other hallway in the school, long, lined with lockers, with old fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But the air was different here, colder, heavier. I could feel the weight of something unseen pressing down on me, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of doubt. Maybe the stories were true. I took a deep breath and started walking. The hallway seemed longer than it should have been, stretching out endlessly before me. My footsteps echoed unnaturally, like the sound was bouncing off invisible walls. Halfway down, I heard it, a soft, shuffling sound, like someone walking behind me. I stopped, my heart racing. The sound stopped too. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. I turned around, expecting to see someone, anyone, but the hallway was empty. I took another step forward, and the shuffling started again, closer this time. I spun around, but again, there was nothing there. My breath came in short gasps as I hurried down the hallway, trying to keep calm. But the footsteps followed, quicker, more insistent. Panic set in. I broke into a run, my footsteps pounding against the floor. The whispers began then, soft at first, then louder, like voices just out of reach, speaking words I couldn't understand. They surrounded me, filling my ears with their eerie hum. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just kept running, desperate to escape the sound, the feeling of something right behind me. I reached the end of the hallway, bursting through the door into the main corridor. The whispers stopped abruptly, leaving only silence behind. I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath, my hands trembling. Whatever had followed me down that hallway was gone now, but I could still feel its presence, lingering in the air. I knew then that the stories were true. Something haunted that hallway, something that didn't want to be seen. I left the school as quickly as I could, the shadows seeming darker than before. I never told anyone what happened that night. Who would believe me? But I never went near the silent hallway again, and I wasn't the only one. More students started to avoid it after Mark's disappearance, and eventually, the school closed off that part of the building. They said it was for renovations, but we all knew the truth. No one wanted to go near the silent hallway, not after what happened. Mark was never found. His parents moved away a few months later, heartbroken. The rumors faded with time, but I never forgot. Sometimes late at night, I can still hear the whispers in my dreams, calling me back to that hallway. But I won't go. I know better now. Some places are meant to stay empty, left alone. The silent hallway is one of them. And whatever waits there in the dark, I hope it stays hidden, because I'm not going back to find out.